So today we are going to start with a new topic and then also new step. So I guess you're all now by now you're very familiar with what we have done yesterday until last session, sorry, that was on Saturday. So we dealt with acquiring empirical data. That was a very heavy, what I would say, the topic. So roughly I think 3 days I think we had taken only on acquiring empirical data. And in acquiring empirical data, we had seen issues like uh, what are those topics that we had seen: sources of information or sources of data, methods of data collection, tools of data collection, and then we had also seen what is called concept of measurement, and then followed by what is called the sampling. So there was a heavy work that we had done last week. And in addition to that, we had also seen demonstration of how to construct a questionnaire or an interview schedule. And then also we had seen how to upload it online using one free service and one commercial service. I guess you're in touch with those points. So if we are on the track, we can move forward with the new topic today and then the new step. The topic is Unit 4, Analysis of Data, and the step in our research process is called analysis of data itself, of course. Yeah, how to analyze the data. So both are dovetailing now. Unit 4 of your syllabus, and then step 7. Step 7 actually, sorry. Step 7 is analysis of data. How to analyze the information that we had collected from the field. So here what we are going to do, we will have a slideshow. I will run the slideshow, followed by, if there is a time with a break, that as usual we'll have 5 minutes break between 1 and 1:15, and then once there is a 5 minutes break afterwards, I'm going to show you how to start analyzing the data. It is more of demonstrative subject, because from step 7 it is going to be more practical. Like we had seen how to construct, how to upload. Now similarly, how to install softwares, how to use them for statistical tests, how to generate tables, how to do graphing, and so on. So that's going to be our this entire week. We are going to see those sessions. I guess by end of this week we would have sufficiently completed the Unit 4. So next week we will have Unit 5. Unit 5 is a very small topic. So most probably by end of this month we will be concluding the syllabus. So I hope you are in touch, you're in tune, you're getting more aware of. But in the meantime, I have what is disappointing to me is your project reports. None had done it. So if that is the case, uh, how are you going to do your internship project reports? Nobody is going to help you. I'll not be there to help you. And then you would be struggling so badly. You would not get any information. You will never know how to go ahead. Nobody is going to help you. Mentors will not give you inputs. So it's going to be very disastrous. So keeping all that in mind, I have suggested these projects. But I do not know, surprising, not a single student from your class had responded. I think now there are only about 5 students online, unfortunately, today. This is a very crucial topic. I wonder what happened to the remaining students out of, you're all 20 actually, right? Out of 20, only 6 are there today. This is the beginning of the week, brand new day. Yeah, never mind. So for us, even one student who's seriously involved in the topic is more important, because that's attendance, all that is your course coordinators look out. So let me move, because if I pay attention to all those administrative issues, I will not be able to deliver the content. So my responsibility is only for the content. So let me move forward with these topics. So what we will do now, we'll start with the PowerPoint slides and then gradually move towards the understanding of the topic. So let's start with the PowerPoint slides first. So this is what your syllabus is all about. In Unit 4, we have to learn analysis of data, then tabulations like frequency tables, cross tables, and statistical testing, and then how to interpret the data, then writing report, how to write popular reports, articles, and technical papers. So I'll have a separate session on these things: how to write a popular report, or how to write a research paper. That's what we call articles. How to write an article. That's a very interesting topic. In fact, I've conducted several workshops on this during the last several years, quite a good number of them for professors. I have done workshops on how to write articles or technical papers. So we'll run those if I can find those videos or audios. I wonder whether I have those audios, but if there's an audio, I will run the audio. Otherwise, I will have a fresh uh, talk on that. So that will happen somewhere in the next week. But in the meantime, I'm not going to highlight this part. This entire second part is going to be, I think, from fag end of this week, or otherwise beginning of the next week. Similarly, so this application of research techniques also we'll see subsequently in the fag end of the week. But so most of the time in this week, we are only going to analyze the data. And for that, we are going to use softwares and things like that. I guess at least now you're getting ready for your projects, because I have to just keep on reminding. So what else I can do? Nothing else except reminding you. So if you're doing it in the sincerity, I'll also be able to spend more wholehearted efforts in doing it. So yeah, anybody else would be interested can always revert to me. I think one student only was regularly in touch with me, but what happened to her also I don't know. Now there's no response from her also. I think twice I had responded to her email or SMS. So anonymously, I'm maintaining the students, and I don't want to share that. So with that introduction, we will move forward. Now, what actually is called data analysis in research? We have to understand it. So what do you mean by data analysis in research? Now, imagine you have finished with your selection of topic, you are through with problem formulation, you have already prepared your research design, you have adopted one of those designs, and then you have also adopted your sampling, then you have prepared your questionnaire. Like in my case, I have done all that, and then I have also uploaded the questionnaire. I have shown you a demonstration on Saturday in Google Forms and as well as Jot Form. So these are the two services. I have shown you, one free and other one is commercial. And then I have sent it all. Actually, already I've collected the data. So I'm going to show you the data while I'm demonstrating that. Either today or tomorrow, I will show you how to enter the data that is collected from Google Forms or Jot Form. And then after downloading that form, how do you move that form into, or export that form into the software that I'm going to show you, and then process that data, generate tables, graphs, and so on. That's going to be our focus. Uh, and then here, data analysis is a very amazing step. It's because the entire hard work that you have put in is now bearing fruits. You can see the actual fruit of your hard work in this step or in this unit. So what do you mean by data processing? Sorry, data analysis. Here you can, in this picture, you can explain that what is the purpose of this data, or how you can analyze the data, in other words. That's the way we'll understand it. So we'll see some definitions. Anyway, before that, let me just compare. The purpose of this picture is to understand that when you have data, you must know what is called these four words: examine, explain, triangulate, and enrich. So this is the cycle actually you have to understand. When you got the data is examined. After examining, you will be able to explain what is there hidden in those data. That's called explain. And then this is called triangulate. That means you're giving some reasons as to why the findings are as they are. This is called triangulation. So what does it mean? Triangulate means you're using multiple sources for interpretation of your data. So if this is your personal explanation, you're interpreting the data, you're giving your explanations, you're selecting so many others explanations. That's what we call triangulate, which means using multiple sources of explanations. And once you triangulate, the entire discussions of your results are enriching. And this enriching discussions, enriching material will be useful for the uh, future researchers or for future theory making and so on. వెంకన్న నేను క్లాస్ ఆన్లైన్ క్లాస్ నడుస్తుంది. ఆన్లైన్ క్లాస్లో ఉన్న క్విక్గా మాట్లాడు, ఎందుకంటే అది పాస్ చేసిన. క్లాస్లో ఉన్న నేను ఆన్లైన్ క్లాస్ క్విక్గా మాట్లాడు. So I guess now you have understood what is the purpose of these 4 steps. So data analysis emphasizes the 4 of them: examining the data, explaining what is the emergent aspect of the data, and then supporting it with so many other explanations. Either you take review of literature, you take some theories, you take your own explanations. So this is called triangulate, multiple source. So using all multiple sources, you're supporting your research, and then finally that's how your report is enriching to the audience or the consumers of your research, or examiners of your research. So when you submit your project report, somebody examines it, somebody evaluates it, somebody tests it, and then declares marks. Or if it's a company might use your research for some decision making and so on. So that's how we explain what is the data analysis. And now we will slowly move into the definitions. What do you mean by data analysis? So we have at least two definitions, two important definitions. Let us see what is it. LeCompte and Schensul. These are the two professors who have defined data analysis as a process used by researchers for reducing, so underline these words, reducing data to a story. So data is not meaningful unless it is converted into a meaningful form. That's why they say a story. That means some narration, which means step by step. When you're explaining, when you're narrating a story, you will explain first scene, second scene, third scene, and last scene. That's what we call story. So reducing data to a story, which means you might have huge data. If you remember, my questionnaire contained 50 plus questions. Do you remember that? Conflicts and satisfaction among hospital employees. So 50 questions were there. Now, if I have to present all 50 questions, how many pages, how many tables, and what to understand from those 50 questions? It will be very difficult. I cannot come to any summary of that output. And that's why I have to reduce the data. If I can reduce that 50 questions into some 5 or 10 tables, the output becomes like a story. And therefore, interpreting will derive insights from this study. So LeCompte has so nicely defined it. So therefore, data analysis can be understood as the process of reducing a large chunk of data into smaller fragments which make sense. You can imagine if some scholar has 200 questions, how you will present 200 questions in your project report? Impossible. You will never know what is head and tail if you have those many questions. That's what we call large chunk of data. So this large chunk of data must be reduced into smaller fragments which can make sense and presentable. That is another important issue that can be easily presented. I hope we are making sense from this definition of what is called analysis of data. We'll see another one by Marshall and Rossman. Marshall and Rossman. They described data analysis as a messy, ambiguous, and time consuming activity. Yeah, definitely. Practically, that's true. So we have too much of data, too many. If I have printed forms, I would have collected all the printed forms from the field, and after bringing home, it is a big, bulky, uh, what you call accumulation of those printouts. Some have become dark, some have become folded, some have become torn. Naturally, it is messy. It looks messy. And not only that, when you are downloading that Google form from internet, it looks very messy actually, very ambiguous, not clear at all. And then it's very time consuming. Anything that we do on internet is very time consuming. Our time is stolen on internet. You hardly have any time for any other activities in life if you're online. So that's why I remember while I was at Apollo Hospitals, I used to keep a notepad every time I would go to a computer to use anything online. So I would keep this notepad, and in that notepad I will mention like, now I'm starting at so and so time, 10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock. I have started browsing internet. I am supposed to search for this informations. After that, I must close it down by 11:30. So 1.5 hour maximum time. So unless I do like that, my time is gone. So extremely time consuming, particularly when you're using softwares. Now, because of this lockdown, trying out anything online is learning first and doing next. And when I'm doing simultaneously, naturally a lot of hiccups. You don't understand what's happening actually, what input is throughput and output, which one is input, throughput, output, how many inputs, throughput, output. This is all confusing. So anyway, we are realizing the clarity. So the purpose of data analysis is generate a creative and fascinating process. Though it is messy, ambiguous, time consuming, but still it is creative, fascinating process through which a mass of collected data is being brought to order. Now that's how the purpose, ultimate purpose of analysis is to bring order in that messy data, structure the data so that you can have meaning. So you can bring an order, structure, and meaning. It's possible only through data analysis. So Marshall and Rossman have given another interesting definition. Now I'm summarizing that. So what does it mean finally? Data analysis and interpretation is a process representing the application of deductive and inductive logic to the research and data analysis. So we talked about the concept of logic in the very first beginning. Now how to deduct, that means how to extract, that is called deduction. What can you extract from the interpretation of the data analyzed? Then induct, what can you introduce to the theory building from your findings? That's called inductive logic. So deductive logic and inductive logic both are applied to your research. So that's how we summarize. Ultimately, what's the purpose of analysis of data? The purpose is to reduce large quantum of data into smaller, meaningful sets so that easily one can understand them. So now what we will do, we'll slowly go into why should we do that? Why should we analyze the data? When we do that, we'll find interesting patterns. We will find some interesting patterns. What are hidden in those can be extracted. And some unexpected patterns or expressions you can find in the data hidden. And then you can tell and the results tell the most unforeseen. Nobody had seen before, only your eyes have seen for the first time. And yet exciting stories that were not at all expected at the time of collection of data or at the time of entry of data. But it's only after the analysis you will know so much of excitement. So many, for example, people are doing research on vaccines, they are doing research on virus, antivirus, and also research on the virus itself. So There are three lines of research that are emerging, and then the the post-corona environment is going to be extremely complex. Businesses are complex. Some people are claiming innovations or inventions. Some people claim that they found the vaccine. They want patents. They want to make more money. And then post-COVID environment, how to accept anybody into the company unless he has vaccine certifications. So we are going to face a lot of what you call dynamic situations, very tough situations. So unless you have this vaccine, you won't get a job in the future. Unless you have this vaccination, you will not be allowed to enter into a restaurant or a cinema theater. You cannot attend marriage functions without this. So we really don't know. We are heading towards a disastrous post-COVID life. So if you want to live in the city, it's better you have to get ready. You must get ready for all these environmental demands. But I'm realizing the best method to escape all these things is go away from the cities, go to a remote forest, and then live alone. Is it possible? So people always get adjusted with any kind of demands, any kind of atmospheres that are likely to. So you'll see a lot of uh, amazing inventions, how this 5G and vaccinations are going to play. It's game changing for all of us across the world. So I'm sure research will reveal these kind of interesting things. And that's why you have to do research and read research. Now, there are various types of data that we would collect, and we have to analyze them. And we know that data can be in different forms today. They're in, as I told you once, it's also in the form of emojis, or in the form of smileys. It's in the form of emoticons, whatnot. These are all data again. So therefore, we know in primary source, there are at least three types of data: qualitative data, quantitative data, and categorical data. Categorical means only two or three groups. Qualitative data, the data that has words, descriptions, then we call it qualitative data. So all the interviews that will have words and descriptions. Then quantitative data, expressed in numbers of numerical figures. That's going to be our major focus in this analysis, in this class. Categorical data, which basically means only two or three answers. Participants could be grouped into two or three according to the answer that they give. That's called categorical. So qualitative data, quantitative data, and categorical data. We'll see examples anyway, more. Qualitative data examples. Qualitative data represents everything which is described in terms of taste, experience, texture, preferences, feelings, opinions, sentiments, beliefs, values, attitudes. They're all qualitative data. And we have seen that this kind of data is collected through interviews and questionnaires. And also there's a method called focused group. I didn't talk about that much because this is not possible. We have not seen this practiced in hospitals at least. Focused group is another method of interviews in which you'll gather a small group of people uh, who are the subjects of a problem that we are studying, and this group of people are asked to describe their suffering, their problems, the consequence of the problem, what steps they have taken to overcome the problem, what are the reactions while solving the problem, what was the outcome of the problem solving, whether they could arrive at a decision, did they implement the decision, or are they waiting for somebody to fund their decision. So this is what we call focused group discussion activities. And whatever the members in the group are discussing, you record all their all their discussions, and that's how the data collected. And then personal interviews and questionnaires, we are much aware of it because Either you use personal interviews, you go and personally collect information from them through a list of questions which are structured, or open-ended questions in which you don't have any organized questions or list of questions. You'll simply give those questionnaire to them, ask them to answer as they want, and then that's it. You collected the data, and this is what we call qualitative data. Examples are like, now we are moving into the quantitative data. There's a spelling mistake there. So quantitative data, questions such as age, rank, cost, length, weight, scores, etc. comes under qualitative type of data. And this data helps us in presenting graphically, and also you can apply statistics on such kind of data. And there is something called outcome measurement systems, which means there are softwares which can analyze such kind of data. That's what the simple understanding. So today I'm going to show you a list of softwares. That is after the break around 1:15, I will try to play that. And then you would know list of softwares that are available in the market today. Some are free, some are commercial. So I'll try to demonstrate only something which is free, because I have a commercial one licensed at my institute. So I don't know whether I can play it, because this YouTube video is public. Actually, I didn't make it private. I make it public so that my PhD students from other universities also can listen to these lectures. But unfortunately, they are also not there. Probably they are preoccupied with their something else. So I don't blame anybody when they are not participating in this class. It's because they are productively involved somewhere. Very simple. After all, somebody is doing something, somebody is learning something. If not in this classroom, they're learning something somewhere else underneath the tree. That's what my mindset is. I will never discourage anybody. So, but after all, life is all about learning to live. But what prioritization is what is important for students. You must know which priorities are important. So now categorical data examples. We've already seen that in the previous discussions. Living style, marital status, smoking habits, drinking habits. So when the answers are yes or no, they are called categorical data. Only two responses. Living style, modern, traditional. Marital status, married, unmarried. Smoking habit, yes or no. Drinking habit, yes or no. These are all called categorical data. So that's what we call this, once again refreshing. The types of data that we deal in our research is qualitative data, quantitative data, and categorical data. More often, I would ask for quantitative data, because you cannot apply statistics without this kind of data. But what if it is qualitative data? You must convert that into quantitative data. So that's it. We'll move on now. Now, there are various methods for analysis of qualitative data. This is a tough challenge, actually, in my opinion. Analyzing qualitative data is very tough. It's because tons and tons of papers, lot of descriptions people make. So when a lot of description is made, how we can understand a pattern? Suppose I give each one of you a paper. I'll ask you to describe about yourself. So naturally you will do that. Now once you do that, I would collect all those 20 sheets. Now how should I analyze those 20 sheets and present it in one page? All your descriptions. Very laborious. And that's all qualitative data. So that's why, to make a meaningful analysis of qualitative data, there are four types basically. Four types are, they are called four methods of analysis of qualitative data. One is called content analysis. Second one is called narrative analysis. Third one is discourse analysis. And the last one is grounded theory. So I'm not showing any elaborate slides because the number of slides is increasing. So what I will do, I'll very simply describe each of these methods so that you can note down some points. So this will not be there in PPT file. This will also be not there in any video file. So, and that's why you have to note down these points. The first one is called content analysis. I hope you are writing down the methods of doing qualitative analysis. Content analysis is a very popular and very regularly or frequently employed method of or technique of data collection, data analysis. And this content analysis method is uh, used only if you have documented information. And this documented information is in the form of text and images, or sometimes some physical items also. Suppose you want to know how Nizams lived in Nizam's times. You will have a lot of documents. If you go to, there is one in old city somewhere near Afzalganj, I think. There is an institution called uh, Nizam's Archives. It's a library actually. And then you will find all Nizam's correspondence, all books, materials, letters written by those people, their photographs, their dining sets, their kitchen equipments, their clothes, whatnot, their chairs, their beds. You can find a lot of those things there. So if you want to do any study on lifestyle of Nizams, you can use content analysis. So you can also use some of the texts, mails or letters written by the Nizams. Then their family backgrounds, histories, their wives. Their wives came from other countries. So which country, all that you can see. Nizam's wife was from Turkey actually. So that lady, uh, I don't recollect his name, but her name. But this lady was a princess of a king of Turkey. And Nizam married her. And when she came to Hyderabad, all the way from Turkey, and then one day she was traveling through, what is it called, area, Nampally, on what is it called, chariot pulled by the horses. And she found that so many people were walking with a lot of heavy carriages on their heads. And then she inquired about who these people are. And somebody, the soldier probably, told her that these are all the people who are coming from remote villages, walking. Don't they have transport facility? No. And then she gave, she had a lot of money brought from Turkey, and with the help of that money she started bus transport facility for them. And that's what RTC today is. So if you want to find out the history of RTC, content analysis is only method. Or if you want to study the food habits of Nizams, content analysis is only method. If you want to study the health problems during Nizam's time, I remember there was a plague during Nizam's time, and that's why in memory of that they constructed Charminar. Charminar is basically a memorial, what you call, construction for people who had died of a plague. So now we can take some examples from health. Supposing if you want to know how the people are suffering from this virus, you can collect lot of text material, lot of research articles, lot of paper images, newspaper clippings, and then analyze them and generate a report. And that's what we are using, content analysis. Now the second one is called narrative analysis. You can write down some notes. So this method is used to analyze content which is collected from various sources. Could be interviews, could be questionnaires, could be surveys, could be observations, whatnot. And then what would you do? The focus is on the answers to be found for your questions. So from all these interviews, from all these observations that you have collected, your focus could be on what are the answers, what is emerging from those narrations. For example, you take all the interviews, what is coming out of those interviews? The next, go to all the observations reports that you have. So go through observation schedules, what is emerging from those observation schedules? So that's the way you can identify. Next one is called discourse analysis. It is also very similar to the narrative analysis, which is also used for analyzing the interactions with people. Nevertheless, this method takes into consideration the context under which the interaction between researcher and respondents take place. Particularly, discourse analysis is applicable in case of research on lifestyles, research on, let us say, the environment today. During this lockdown, the environment across the world has improved. The pollution levels have gone to zero levels now. Water has become purified. Now greenery has increased. The dust has been settled down. So you don't find dusty environments. So if you want to study day-to-day environment, you can just interview people. From their narrations. You can get all this information, and then you can derive any conclusions. With that, we move on to the last one called grounded theory. I think this is a now it is becoming very popular across the world. This method, grounded theory. Grounded theory is actually a method of qualitative analysis. Anybody would know what is grounded theory? Have you heard of it before? Yeah, when you're reading continuously, somewhere you would have come across, but you would have just ignored it, or otherwise you have just uh, passed it over. Okay, let's see what is this method. When you want to explain why a particular phenomenon happened, for example, how did this virus uh, come from Wuhan city? No, you have so many theories about it, no doubt about it. Some people say it escaped from a lab. Some people say it came from bat. Some people say it came from rats. So many ways of giving explanations. But of course, some of you also might be having some other theories of how this virus came into being. Some people say it is not natural. Some people say it is artificial. Yeah, there are so many theories. But I found some alternative source that this virus came from a creature which lives under the seabed, something like 3,000 feet beneath the sea level. So the fisher, some unfortunate fact that when a fisher was catching fish from a sea, this seabed creature came to the surface of the water and got caught. And as usual, this was brought into the marketplace, and it got somebody from a family purchased it, ate it, and that family was the root of all. Because in China, in Japan, in many other South Asian countries, they eat raw fish. They call it sushi and sashimi. That is the name they give for eating raw fish. They make thin layers of the muscle of the fish, soak it in what you call vinegar, and they eat it. That is their culture. That's why in Japan you'll find a lot of gastroenteritis problems, and also uh, colon cancer and other intestinal cancers are more in Japan. Why? Because they consume a lot of raw meat, particularly raw fish. So that's anyway, it's a culture. So just because of one family which ate this strange animal creature from the seabed, and that animal had this virus, it doesn't harm those animals, but it jumped from that creature into humans. That's it. And from there it got started spreading. That's my theory. I have explained, I have given almost a 40 minutes lecture on this some 50 days ago in one of the gatherings. I didn't want to go deep into it because our topic is something else. But that's how research has a potential to find an answer when others have not. Your explanation should be very, very unusual, and that should be acceptable with lot of evidences. So grounded theory is very interesting theory. If you can use this theory for analyzing qualitative data, particularly if you want to explain a phenomena that has happened. Now, this theory is applied to study of data about a host of similar cases occurring in different settings. If you remember, I told you the before last week also in one of the discussions. Now, this virus, which was so what I would say um, virulent or whatever you call, the strains were so uh, harmful, or what do you call that? Very strong, stubborn strains. The stubborn strains of this virus were found in Italy, Spain, and the United States, whereas the strains that were visible in Indian samples were moderate to weak strains. Similarly, in other countries like Pakistan, these are some of the places the strain of this virus was weaker than the strains that were so stronger in European cases. This is not my view. This was a view given by the director of CCMB. So therefore, this theory, grounded theory, is a method which helps us to analyze a host of similar cases occurring in different settings. So if you want to really find a vaccine or drugs for this virus, you have to study all the strains, not only Indian strain. You have to study all the strains. What if you found a vaccine for Indian strains and you want to export that vaccine to European countries? It may not work. And by the way, how many of you know that all vaccines, whatever the vaccines you call, they are only 70% to 80% efficient. They are not 100% successful. So when we use grounded theory, we might give alternative explanations or produce new explanations until we arrive at some common conclusion. So you can see that how I have explained you. My explanations on this virus are very different from what you hear in the newspapers or television. How did I arrive at that? It's all because of the grounded theory. So you can apply these models, these methods, and then you can be a different hospital management student. So I hope we got used to know what are these methods, qualitative methods of data analysis. Now is the time we will see the quantitative methods. Now, before we see the methods, I want you to know that how do we analyze the data in quantitative research? And then we have to first prepare the data for analysis. And in order to do that, we have to follow three stages or three phases. Phase 1 is data validation. Phase 2 is data editing. And then phase 3 is data coding. So these are the three stages in preparing for data analysis. And then later we'll see the methods of analysis. So what is called validation? You have to ensure that your data is accurate, precise, error free, gaps free, no gaps. And how do we classify this validation? Validation is classified into 4 stages. Number 1, fraud. You have to ensure that actual human beings recorded this information. Sometimes what happens, computers, you can put an auto responder. So computer will answer all the questions. That's what some people who does. Particularly if your survey is a paid survey, you're paying money. So some fellows will put a script, JavaScript, and the JavaScript will 100 times, maybe 1,000 times answers your questionnaire. And then 1,000 times you have to pay that gentleman. It's basically a worm. So somebody is injecting a worm to answer all your paid surveys and they get paid a lot of money. That's called fraud actually. So you have to see whether human beings are answering these questions or what you call these autoresponders, Autobots they called, autoresponders. Similarly, screening, that is the next level of data validation. You have to ensure that each participant is selected or chosen in compliance with the research criteria. So, supposing you used a sampling method, simple random sampling method, estimating, let us say, 100 samples from a hospital, whether all these 100 fellows have answered or not, that is called screening. And whether all these 100 people are really the sample respondents or some other fellows. So, you have the idea of these samples, then you cross check with the idea of these samples after collection, not before. That's exactly called screening. Then procedural validation. We have to ensure that all ethical standards were maintained while collecting the data samples. You know, some students, what they did in the past, I remember, these students, they were lazy students. So what they will do, they'll simply go underneath the tree, sit down, and they will fill all the questionnaires for their patients. And they'll come back to me. Then I would easily know that whether these were sincerely done or not. So by simply looking at the paper quality, I would know that this is not done sincerely. If it was done sincerely, the paper would have had lot of wear and tear, folds, dirt from the field, sweat marks, dirt marks, whatnot, gibberish penned marks, not in immaculate condition actually. This paper would have been much folded and roughened. So easily I would know whether a student had done sincere work or not. And that's how we have impressions about people, but we don't brand them anyway. And then the last phase of data validation is called completeness. You have to ensure that every question is answered, no gaps, and every answer is properly mentioned. Nothing is confusing. That's what complete in all respects. Part A is profile of the respondents is complete. Part B, questions relating to conflict, complete. Part C, questions relating to job satisfaction are complete. So whether all these questions were answered or not can be cross-checked with data validation. Now phase 2, very important stage. What if there are some errors? What if some are empty ones? Some answers were empty. Some people fill incorrect answers. Instead of answering in one place, they'll answer in some other place. Some people have skipped some of those questions. How do we edit them? So that's why in data editing, your job as a researcher is to ensure that the data is free of all such errors. So you need to conduct further checks and then what is called outlier checks. What is outlier checks? The outliers are, instead of saying yes or no, they would have given something, some other outside answer. That's called outlier. Instead of giving the answers defined in the structure, they would have given some other answer that is called outlier. So you have to check for all those and then edit them before you keep this data ready for analysis. A very, very crucial phase. And then phase 3 called data coding is a very important. I'm going to show you how to do it in the post break after 1 o'clock. I'm going to show you how data coding happens, because in fact this phase is a very, very important phase, because this is actually called launching. Once coding is done, you can straight away enter the data into computer sheet and then start processing. That's what we call data coding. It's a very, very critical phase of data preparation, because the answers have to be given codes. Whereas in the questionnaire or the interview schedule, you might have given only answers. Marital status, married, unmarried, divorced, deserted, widowed. These are the answers. But what are the codes to be given to those values? Now you would know that. Phase 3. So in phase 3, you have to give those complete answers. Just gave an example here. You have a completed survey of 1,000 respondents, and then researcher will create an age bracket to distinguish the respondents based on their age. So grouping them. So how many age groups? You have to give groups and then give numbers to each of these groups. 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50. That can be done before, that can be done after also. But in data coding, if you do it before and after entering into the computer screen, you would know how to arrange those groups and generate a table. It becomes very easier for you to analyze small data brackets rather than to deal with massive data accumulation. So now there are two types of statistics that we would use. I will come back to this discussion subsequently also. So once you are ready with the data, then you have to think of statistics. There are various types of statistics that we will use. One is called descriptive statistics, another one is called inferential statistics. So in our discussion, in our classes, we are not going to see the entirety of these topics, because beyond the syllabus requirements, and not only that, you will also not understand honestly, because in your first semester in statistics subject, you would have studied some basics of descriptive statistics and also inferential statistics. And that is the reason, how many inferential statistics? There are literally hundreds of them. Impossible to do all of them in this course. I will try to show some important ones which can be used in your project reports during your internship. We'll try some of them. So in the descriptive statistics, we are classifying actually. In descriptive statistics, we have something called measures of frequency, measures of central tendency, and measures of dispersion. Three categories. So you can put it under descriptive statistics: measures of frequency, measures of central tendency, and measures of dispersion or variance. So yeah, that's what. If you knew at least all of this, while you are using the software, it becomes easy for you to generate. Measures of frequency. If you want to know the count of age, how many people have responded to age, you can use count. If you want to know the percentage of age groups out of 100 respondents, what is the percentage of people in 20 to 30? What is the percentage of people in 30 to 40? Likewise, if you want to know, you can have percentage. But if you want to know the frequency, which basically talks about number of people or frequency of such numbers recurring. So frequency of the number. So what does it further mean? Number of people basically. Frequency means number of subsets. Three age groups. How many are there in each of these age groups? That's called frequency. And you convert that frequency into percentage. So therefore, measures of frequency are used to denote how often, there's a spelling mistake, how often a particular event occurs. So when you want to showcase the responses for each of these questions, you can use measures of frequency. Now, measures of central tendency, you knew them very well. You have learned how to calculate mean, median, mode in your first semester. Most popular measures these are. So if you want to know the average of the characteristics of the sample, or if you want to describe the characteristics of the sample, you need mean, median, mode. So mean is what we call the average, median is called the central value, mode is called the most frequently occurring value. So there are three purposes of this mean, median, mode. If you want to know, fulfill those purposes, you must apply mean, median and mode. Now, particularly for variables like age, income, years of experience, number of patients, number of amount of money paid, number of days of hospitalization, you have to apply mean. Similarly, median and mode. Now, measures of dispersion. You have studied and you have also learned how to compute each of them. The first one is called range. The second one is called variance or C bar and standard deviation sigma. So these are the three popular measures of dispersion. Square root of variance is called standard deviation anyway. So here the fields equal to high or low points. That's what the purpose here is. What is the high and the low points of the distribution if you want to know? You would use these dispersions. And then when do we use them? When you want to identify how the values are distributed from the starting point. So it's basically done on the distribution of the respondents on a given variable. So how are their responses on a given variable are distributed? If they're normally distributed or not normally distributed, you will know through measures of dispersion. Suppose if you calculate Z transformation, then you would know whether your distribution is normal or not. You have learned all of those. Fine. So when you want to showcase your data, particularly how your data is distributed or spread out, measures of dispersion will always be helpful. For example, if you are presenting the average age of patients, you must also present the standard deviation of the age of the patients. So mean and standard deviation must be shown together. Mean and SD must be shown together. Because mean will talk about the averages about the responses, whereas standard deviation will talk about the spread out. What are the deviations from the mean? Or what is the distance between SD and mean? So SDs will demarcate the deviations or the distribution spread out from the mean score or the population mu. So these are very crucial ones because in the absence of standard deviation, mean is misleading. We cannot easily understand the mean in the absence of standard deviation. So when you are presenting the average scores of patients' characteristics, you always have to present the standard deviation also. So now the last one is called measures of position. This is very rarely discussed in statistics, but they're very crucial. If you want to present the ranks, you would know the position. In US academics, they give importance to ranks. What percentile a candidate belongs to in his class. So if we say so and so candidate has, he's a top 5 percentile in the class. So I'm talking about he falls in the first 5% of the rankers. So percentile means 5, quartile means 4. That's the way we define. So if you want to distribute percentiles, so you would know out of 100 you will have 5 percentiles, whereas quartiles you will have 4 of them. So first 25, second 25, that is 50th rank, then third one is the 75th one, and the last one is 100. So that's called the quartiles. So this is very crucial because when I'm demonstrating the software, you will see how this particular measures of position is applied, that I'm going to show you anyway. So that's all about descriptive statistics. Now is the time to go through inferential statistics. Very quickly I'll do that, and then our focus is going to be more on inferential statistics. So from tomorrow we will see more of them. This entire week I'm going to show you more of inferential statistics using that software. So slowly move on now. What do you mean by inferential statistics? These are used to make predictions about large populations once the data was collected. Very, very important one. Without inferential statistics, you can never establish cause and effect analysis. You can never test hypothesis. You can never show differences. You can never show variances. You can never show relationships. You can never predict relationships. That's why inferential statistics are inferring. That means extracting. Inferring means extracting. What is hidden in the data is extracted. That's called inferential. So, for example, there are two significant areas of inferential statistics. The first one is called estimating the parameters. So, how one variable influences other variable. That's what sample research data and uses it to demonstrate something about the population parameter. So, when you want to estimate the averages in relation to the population averages, or you call population mu actually. So, if you want to demonstrate how the sample data demonstrates something of population parameter. So for estimating the parameters, you will use inferential statistics. Of course, for hypothesis testing also. We'll anyway give lot of descriptions on them. Whether multivitamin capsules help children to perform better at games or in studies. So you have the dosage of multivitamin capsules and the performance can be graded, evaluated with numbers. So more multivitamins, more performance, we can establish that hypothesis, either accept or reject it. So inferential statistics are used for hypothesis testing, and common inferential statistical methods are correlation, cross tabulation. You are very familiar with them. We are going to demonstrate each of them anyway from tomorrow. Correlation, cross tabulation. And you know the purpose of correlation. When you want to when you want to estimate the relationship between two or more variables, we opt for correlation research. And then in research designs also we talked about correlational studies. So when you have adopted correlational studies, you have to apply correlation methods. I'm going to show you each one of them anyway. Next one is called cross tabulation. Cross tabulation is also called contingency tables, or also called X tabulations, X tabs. They are also called bivariate tables. So you can write down somewhere in your notes. They are called contingency tables. They are called X tabs. They are also called bivariate tables. And why do we use these tables? They are very crucial tables. With the help of these tables, we can establish the relationship and analyze the relationship, or also association between the variables. Suppose you want to know the patient recovery. type of patient and the recovery. So you have two types of patients, those who are IP, those who are OP. So sorry, let's take only IP. So in among IP, you have two types of patients. Patients who are suffering from severe ailments, patients who are suffering from moderate, mild ailments. So who's recovering fast? So two variables can be shown in their association, and therefore you will use cross tabulation. You can even use gender of the patients. Male patients recover fast or female patients recover fast. Young patients recover fast or old patients recover fast if you want to take the age. So age or gender you can use for analysis. So cross tabulation basically trying to show the association between two variables. So I'm going to demonstrate them anyway tomorrow more elaborately each of these. Now very interesting of all is called regression analysis. If you want to find the strength of relationship between two variables, and not only that, if you want to predict such relationship, regression analysis is the best method. Unfortunately, what you can do is in regression analysis, you will always have one dependent variable and there can be multiple independent variables. That is the only weakness in this method. Otherwise, this is one of the best methods of statistics ever invented. Why? Because to establish cause and effect, that was one of the characteristics of science we talked about in the early classes. Characteristics of science and scientific method is prediction. So to establish the predictive relationship between cause and effect, this is the only statistical method invented so far. Unfortunately, it can only describe the relationship between a set of what you call conditions we have seen in canons of Mill, condition A, B and C, D and E, A, B, C, D, E, four conditions or five conditions. And then observation Z is called dependent variable. So you want to establish the relationship between all the five conditions and the observation. Regression analysis is the only statistical method. Then you will know out of those five conditions which is the root cause, which one has very strong effect on dependent variable. I'm going to anyway demonstrate that this week. So this week full of promises, of course, full of action also. So involve thoroughly because rarest of the rare opportunities to see how the software is demonstrated and how translation of your project report into reality happens. I'm also going to show you how a report is written, uh, taking my own project reports of my college days, like you, how I have written reports years ago. I'm preserved some of them. My own reports I have preserved. I'm going to show you all of them. Then frequency tables. We'll not talk much. We'll demonstrate that. It's simply the table which you want to present. Uh, Two or more vary or differ in experiment. For example, you want to see how men and women differ in their what you say treatment or response to the treatment. How men and women differ in their response to the treatment. So differences in their responses can be captured through these tables. And then we can apply F-test or analysis of variance. So I'm going to demonstrate how. So ANOVA will tell whether the mean variation or means difference is statistically significant or not. We can even apply t-test. So I'm going to show you how to do t-test also here on these tables. So we'll also try ANOVA in one of the demonstrations. So in ANOVA, you can see the testing of the degree to which two or more vary or differ in an experiment. Or where what exactly we mean by is the dependent variable here. So two or more, which means if I classify patients into three types of patients, oncology, nephrology, neurology, three patients. How three patients differ in their patient satisfaction scores or vary in their patient satisfaction scores. There are two words we are using, vary or differ. When I use the word vary, I use ANOVA. When I use the word differ, I use t-test. Why? Because Differ is always between two groups. We cannot use this word for three groups in grammatical context. English is such a peculiar language in which difference is used between two groups. Variance is used among groups. So more than two groups. If you want to test their responses, you have to say variance. So that's why ANOVA was invented. We will run this statistical test more elaborately. So I would stop here and then have, uh, I would say, a 5-minute break. Come back. We're going to start with analysis of data more demonstratively. So have a break. Friends, come back. So we're going to start with the demonstration of the step unit 4. Unit 4, like unit, let us say, previous step called acquiring empirical data. It had taken more than a week's time for us to understand acquiring empirical data as what you call, which step anybody would, fifth step, right? Yeah, it was fifth step. So fifth step had taken more than a week's time to understand. Similarly, so the sixth step, which is unit 4 called analysis of data, will also take more than a week's time. Of course, it depends on if we can tightly manage our time by end before the end of this week only we'll be able to finish it, so that next week we can conclude with the last unit of the syllabus very leisurely, peacefully. Then we can also now concentrate on project reports. So believe me, if you are not doing project reports, you have not understood this subject, because this is a very practical subject. How do you demonstrate the whole project report? So this subject has that potential. So now what we will do, I have already pre-recorded some of the sessions on Unit 4. So I will replay some of those. So today I'll start with one video, and tomorrow I will try whether I can play some more of them. Though they are not customized, they are actually meant for some other group. You can ignore certain things. For example, suppose you are supposed to submit assignment 2, assignment 3. Uh, in fact, actually in your case, you have not even submitted assignment 1. There's no point in talking about assignment 2 and assignment 3. So, but this was meant for some other students in my current workplace. They have submitted all 4 assignments very promptly, and there were 110 students actually, not 20 like you. And out of 20, hardly 6 students or 8 students only always found on these classes participating. Remaining are not found. So never mind. Probably they are not in the city, or they are somewhere in the remote villages. They don't have internet access. So now what we will do, we will start with the first unit, sorry, first topic, that is called demonstration of analysis of data. And then mostly these sessions are very demonstrative. Otherwise, I've already given you the introduction to the analysis of data as to what we should do. So in this previous session, we had already seen some cursory view because we are not going to see this slide again and again. So I will quickly run some overviews again. So what we had seen is we had started with analysis of data theoretically, then how to generate frequency tables, cross tabulation, some understanding about statistical testing. And we had seen what actually is called the analysis of data by its steps. First of all, you have to examine the data, then explain why the data as it is, then triangulate. That means your explanations have to be supported with additional sources of information like review of literature, experts' opinions, or any other theories which you can help, or your own observations, your own work experiences can be put together, and we call it triangulation. And then that's how your body of knowledge is enriched. The whole subject, you're contributing to the whole world's subject on your topic. That's what we call enriching the subject. Then we had seen the definitions, two definitions we had seen, and then we have also learned why it is so important for us to analyze the data. And then we had also seen why it is so important for us to run into types of data, right? Various types of data: qualitative, quantitative, and categorical data, three types of data. And we had seen a lot of examples of qualitative, quantitative, and categorical data. And then we had moved on to how to analyze qualitative data. And therefore, we had seen four important methods called content analysis, narrative analysis, discourse analysis, and grounded theory. These are the four methods of qualitative analysis. And then we learned about quantitative data analysis, which is basically called preparing for data analysis, and there are subsequently the methods. But there are three phases we talked about for qualifying the data. First one is called data validation, second one is called data editing, and the third one is called data coding. So having seen these three, we had seen elaborately the types of statistics called descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. In fact, statistics are classified into two types only across the world. So descriptive statistics are very simply, they describe the phenomenon or the characteristics of the sample, whereas inferential statistics will explore the relationships between the variables, among the variables. They explore the differences, they explore the variations, they explore the effects, they explore the predictions. So relationships, associations, variations, differences, predictions, effects, impacts, all these words are used when in inferential statistics. So if you want to measure the impact, you need inferential statistics. If you want to measure the effect, you need inferential statistics. If you want to measure the relationships, associations, you need inferential statistics. If you want to capture the variances, you need inferential statistics. Similarly, if you want to establish the differences, you need inferential statistics. And that's how we had seen some of those descriptive statistics called measures of frequency, measures of central tendency, measures of dispersion, and measures of position. And then inferential statistics are in terms of estimating parameters and hypothesis testing. And the common methods of quantitative methods are called correlation, cross tabulation, regression analysis, frequency analysis, and ANOVA. So, but in anyway, in the demonstration at the end of the week, I'll also show you some advanced statistical tests which were not taught to you in your first semester because that was not part of the syllabus. But in the workplace, you're going to use those statistics because you are compelled to use those statistics. So I'm going to demonstrate all of those. So with that preview, I think now it's time for us to start with the demo. So I think hope you're all seriously involved in this subject because this is a one-time opportunity in your life. So I'm going to start with the demo of the uh, the data analysis. So let's start with it.
Dear
As
students,
I
good
told,
morning to all of you. And after
as I told you, this is basically a pre-recorded version for somebody else. So you can ignore, you can omit certain things about assignments and some corrections, suggestions, admonitions made to that group of students. Just ignore them and then take the essence of the topic that is meant for you. So here we go.
Dear students, good morning to all of you. And after a long time, we are again coming back with our classes. I could understand that you were all busy with doing your assignments and then of course working with members in a team online is definitely difficult, but I'm sure you're getting used to it because the future is all about virtual teams. You would not see your colleagues, but you have to still work with each other, understanding each other's limitations and then helping each other, and that's how your projects can be done. And this lockdown is giving you a wonderful experience like that. With a lot of issues, you still have to work, you still have to do your work because time and tide waits for none. So with that preview, now we are going to start with fourth unit of our syllabus, and that's called analysis of data. And then let's have a quick review of our third assignment. Now in the third assignment, you are expected to upload the questionnaires and then submit the link to me. Of course, you also have to send the link to all your responses or respondents who were sampled. So the condition is you have to collect the data at least from 60 respondents minimum, and more you could run into 100, 200, 300, 400, whatever the number, but minimum 60 is the condition, because if you have a minimum of 60, you are eligible to conduct, or your data is qualified for various kinds of statistical tests. If it's less than 60, you are constrained to apply certain statistical tests, and particularly for your hypothesis testing, that would be the limitation. So after the collection of the data, you are expected to submit all your Excel sheets to me, and that's how we will move on with our next class on data analysis using software. So with this preview, let's once again recap. Research process consists of 7 steps. We had already finished with 5 steps: assessing relevant and existing knowledge, formulating concepts and propositions, statement of hypothesis, design of research, acquiring empirical data. So today we are going to start with the sixth step called, yeah, it's a sixth step, but as per the syllabus, it is the fourth unit. So it's called analyze and evaluate the data. So how are we going to do it? So let's have a review. The fourth unit is titled as statistical inference. Now in this unit we will see how to test hypothesis for single populations, how to test hypothesis for two populations, which includes analysis of variance, chi-square test, whereas in the single population we'll have means difference tests, mean, median, mode, all that we will see once again, and then means different tests like t-test, particularly we will see that, z-square or z-test also we will see that. And then the third topic is correlation and simple linear regression, multiple linear regression analysis, and of course the last one is called factor analysis. These are the topics in store for us. So this entire week we will be having a lot of videos on each of them. It's because these are all practical works. In step 6, we have to demonstrate all of these using computer software. Otherwise, I'm 100% sure that you had already learned about all these things in your previous trimesters, probably in first and the second trimester. So therefore, we will not go into the derivative part, or we are not going to see how to calculate all of these, but we are going to see how to analyze the data collected online using Google Forms, and how to transform or export that data into a software and then start using that software, and in which we will see all these topics demonstrated. So what I would do, I will make this time very short videos, so that you could simply download and use, because I keep receiving from some of the students the complaints that they are away from the city, they are far away from the villages, and therefore they don't have enough of internet facilities, which I don't think is a true fact, because now today internet penetration is so much into the remote farthest parts, even in forest areas. I would know that because I keep traveling to remote villages. So I know internet facility is not at all a problem, but what I would think is probably you're not closer to uh, tower. So explore the places where you are closer to the tower and then start using internet. I know we have enough of bandwidth for WhatsApp, enough of bandwidth for YouTube, enough of bandwidth for Twitter and other social media. So that type of bandwidth is enough for even our classes. So without much complaining about it, let's explore what are the possibilities of having access to these lessons and learn them, because most probably by the end of this week we will be completing our syllabus. So if you're missing out, still don't bother about it. You can always download these classes and then keep on listening repeatedly and make some notes. So uh, with this kind of and uh, instructions, we would move on with how do we do analysis of data, or how do we analyze the data after collection of the data from internet, or manually, or by personally visiting. What are we supposed to do? So step one is we have to clean up the data. This is a very important step, because you have been in a hurry to collect the data either online or from respondents. But after collecting all of this data, when you start manually going through or actually going through the data, you would realize that some people have not answered to certain questions. Some people forgot complete row or complete list of questions. So, or some people would have entered something wrong which you didn't cross check. So, this is the time. In step one, you are supposed to clean up the data to ensure that your data is perfect in all respects. What if some people have not at all entered the data? You have to delete that respondent from your um, sheet. So ensure that all respondents have answered in all respects completely. That's called data cleaning. And then once data cleaning is done, you are expected to prepare a code book, which is also called a guidebook. I'm going to explain you very quickly what is code book. Using MS Word or even Excel sheet, I can try. I think that is the best way. Through Excel sheet, I will demonstrate what is called a code book, and then followed by step 3 called master sheet. This is a very important sheet. It is also similar to your Excel sheet, but traditionally we called it master sheet. And then you could enter the data in the Excel sheet. If you're doing it online, automatically the data is stored in Excel sheet format. But if you had collected manually, you still have to enter them into an Excel sheet format, or even in the software which I'm going to demonstrate it. And then once you are through with guidebook as well as data entry sheet, you are supposed to move on to step 4 called analyzing the data. How do you do it? Either you can do it manually. I remember our times when we were students, we did it manually. But today, you have plenty of software available, so therefore you can use the softwares to conduct them manually. So in this course, I'm going to demonstrate softwares for analyzing the data, and particularly for hypothesis testing. So that's going to be the focus of our sessions from subsequently. Now, in the meantime, I wish to draw your attention to the hypothesis testing, which you are definitely familiar with, because in the previous classes, uh, some faculty members would have definitely explained you all these steps. There are 7 steps in hypothesis testing, because this is a very important topic, because the centrality of analysis of data is hypothesis testing. You're trying to demonstrate, you're trying to prove or disprove your assumptions. So therefore, let's quickly review what are these steps. Step number 1, you're supposed to set or formulate a null hypothesis or an alternative hypothesis. You know all about those uh, symbolic notations or expressions for null hypothesis. Mu equals to mu naught, and alternative hypothesis mu not equals to mu naught. And then once you formulate a hypothesis, either null or alternative, your second step is determine the appropriate statistical test. So statistical test, at least in this case, depends upon the type of hypothesis and the way you have formulated it. For example, is your hypothesis assuming relationships? So you have to know what type of statistical test for testing relationships. If your hypothesis assuming variations, you must know what type of statistical test. Similarly, if your hypothesis is all about associations, what type of statistical test? So if your hypothesis is all about differences, What type of statistical test? So you must know how to determine the appropriate statistical tests. We're going to do that in the next topic. And once you're through with step 2, you have to proceed with step 3 called set level of significance. So in level of, I will not elaborate more about it. Level of significance is all about the error you want to tolerate at. So at what level of significance you want to accept the computed value, statistical value. So we normally fix 0.01 or zero point 0.05 or zero point 0.1. So 0.01, 1%, 5%, and 10%. That's how you relate it. So normally in social sciences, we go up till 0.05, less than 0.05. So 0.01 to 0.05 is acceptable in our social sciences. Of course, management subject also. Whereas zero point 0.1 onwards is normally used in medical sciences. So that's the beyond the understanding or beyond the confines of our discussions. We will not talk about zero point 0.1. So whereas in case of our research, we will normally accept less than 0.05. So once you are setting the level of significance, move on with step 4 called set the decision rule. Now, in decision rule, you have to identify the circumstances in which you either reject or accept the hypothesis. You will be commenting those errors called type 1 and type 2 errors. Doesn't matter. Move on to step 5 called collect sample data. So either you do it online or offline. In most of your cases, you have done it online. Some of you wanted to do it offline, but I advise you in this lockdown situation, it's not possible. So I discourage you from doing that. So always stick to online in this crisis moment. Step 6, analyze the data. So how do we do that? Either you do it in software or you do it manually, which I'm going to demonstrate that. Now, step 7, arrive at conclusions based on the statistical interpretations and suggest a business decision. So that's how our hypothesis testing would be conducted. Now, our next class is going to be on demonstration of a software for data analysis. So I hope you have got clarity on what are the steps involved in it. Now it's time for us to uh, go back to each of these steps. Particularly, I'm going to demonstrate from step 2 to step 3. So let's start with step 2. Now in step 2, what we would do, just go to, you can minimize this and then go to uh, MS Word. Now in MS Word, I'm going to prepare a code book. So I'll start like this, code book, and make it in the caps, then increase the font. So that's my code book title. Now what is a code book, by the way? Code book is also called a guidebook, or it is called set of instructions for dealing with the data. So how is your questionnaire prepared? What are the guidelines for understanding your questionnaire for data entry as well as analysis of the data? So here we'll have a format. As I prepare, you can understand that. So codebook has to be prepared and it has to be submitted to your mentors when you're doing your project report or your faculty supervisors. So in your next assignment, you are supposed to prepare a code book and Excel, what is it called, master sheet. These are the two sheets that you are supposed to prepare and submit. So I'm going to prepare now how a code book looks like. So I'll start with serial number and then variable number, and then what is the information I'm seeking, then response pattern, then codes assigned to them, level, measurement level, or simply say measurement, then remarks, any remarks. So what I'll do, I'll reduce the font, and that's how it looks like. Now I'll convert that into columns. So I'll reduce the width of serial number, similarly width of variable number, and width of codes, width of measure, and of course I'll increase the width of response pattern and information sort. Now here what we will do, let's start with uh, get back to your questionnaires. Now where did I keep my questionnaire? My questionnaire is somewhere in, yeah, here it is. I'm opening my questionnaire here, draft questionnaire. Okay, this is my draft questionnaire you're all familiar with. And then part A consists of 12 questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm copy pasting uh, all of these 12 questions here, and then I will remove the table format. After removing the tabular format, so what I'll do, I'll enter like this. Yeah, that's correct. So that's how my variables look like. Now I'll remove the bullet points. I'm just showing you all the shortcuts in order to avoid the time for this recording. Now, that's how I'll prepare for the sake of saving time. And then I'll create another column on the left, and it will dovetail with my serial number just to save the time. And then I'll create another column to the right of this empty column, and that's for variable number. So then I'll just keep dragging it. That's it. So I'm through with it. So I can still adjust it. Then I will create some more columns to the right. Sorry, it doesn't work like that. So what I'll do, just copy paste like this. Yeah, that's how I format. And now my variables are serial number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then since I'm not going to use some questions, for example, name is not needed. So I will not use name, I'll just leave it like that. But I'll start with occupation. So it will be now V1. It will be V2, V3, V4, V5, V6, V7, V8, V9, V10, and V11. Now, what is the response pattern for occupation? I have not given response pattern for any of this. So after the collection of the data, I'll make response patterns here. Now, name, actual name, no code, measure, nominal, sorry, nominal, no remarks, dash. And then I'll increase the layout. Occupation consists of employed and self-employed. Only two occupations I have taken. I'll still decrease the font size to accommodate. Now, employed and self-employed. So what are the codes for employed? Employed is 1, self-employed is 2, and the measure is nominal. I'll simply say N. And then age. This is actuals because the codes are in actuals. Here also I'll say actuals and then interval. No remarks. Now, if there is any actual variables like I'll copy paste for income, years of experience, number of subordinates, number of children, number of promotions. Whereas designations, employee, supervisor, then officer. Only 3 designations. So 1, 2, 3. Nominal. No remarks. I don't have remarks for any of them. What actually the purpose of remarks is, here you could give instructions to data entry operator in case if you're outsourcing this data, since you might not find time or you don't know, you don't have facilities. So therefore, when you outsource this entire work to somebody to enter the data in an Excel sheet, you are giving instructions to that gentleman in these remarks. What is that they should do in case if somebody has not given answer to this question? You mentioned that what instruction he should follow. So that's how I prepare my code book. So I'll move on to the next one called part B. Now what is my part B? Part B is called conflict. So I have question number 13 to 20, 21. Similarly, totally 36 questions are there for. So what I would do, 13 to 20. So I'll go back. I'll prepare simply serial number 13 to 20, and the variables are V12 to V19. Then I would say work conflict items. What is the response pattern? To save time, I'm picking up this. So what I'll do, I'll create another empty sheet here. I'll copy them, then just enter like this. They're all shortcut methods. So separation, I'm copy pasting this. First I'll take this short one, much easier to copy. So okay, similarly I'll copy this and paste it here. That's it. Now question number, serial number 21 to meaning family conflict, serial number 21 to 28. 28. Then variable number V20 to V27. Now these are called family conflict items. So same response pattern. I'll copy here. Then let me complete this. Actually, we didn't do it. This is ordinal measurement. Now serial number 29 to 36. 36. Variable number 28 to variable number 35. Inter role conflict items. Same response pattern, same level of measurement, and that's it. I'm through with my conflict part. Now I would move on to satisfaction part C. So in part C, I have work satisfaction items, family satisfaction items, and life satisfaction items. So let me start with work satisfaction. The serial number 37 to 42. So here 37 to 42. Variable numbers V36 to V41. Work satisfaction. Work satisfaction items have similar response pattern as in case of conflict, so I'll copy paste it. Whereas for the remaining ones, let me save my codebook. So I'll say SFC codebook. Copy that into data analysis folder to save it there. And now go on to family satisfaction 43 to 47. But the response pattern is different here, you can see. So 43 to 47, 43 to 47, V42 to V46, family satisfaction. It's also non-ordinal. So here additional measurements, additional response pattern is that's it. And with that I've come to the last part of my code book. For measuring life satisfaction, I have 4 items 48 to 51. So serial number 48 to 51 and the variable numbers 47 to variable 50. So this 50 item instrument complete scale consists of complete questionnaire consists of 50 items or 50 questions. So life satisfaction scale, copy that even for the other ones. That's it. So I'm through with my code book. Now my code book is ready. Now this code book would help me to prepare my next sheet, next step. Next step is called preparation of an Excel data entry sheet or master sheet. It's called master sheet. So in order to demonstrate how to prepare a master sheet, which is manually done, whereas in your case it is automatically done on Google Forms, but however you need to cross check for any errors. Now a master sheet, it looks like an Excel sheet, which is also called a spreadsheet. That's the traditional standard nomenclature. So in a spreadsheet, or you can even call it master sheet. So I'll put a heading here called master sheet. master sheet. This is a very important. So in the master sheet, remember the universal standards. Rows are meant for respondents. Columns are meant for questions. It's a very, very important instruction. Rows are meant for respondents. Columns are meant for questions. So now in the first column, the I'm going to create the list of variables that are mentioned in the codebook. So codebook would help me to prepare my master sheet. So in the master sheet, I'll start with variable number 1. So get back to master sheet. Before variable number 1, I also need a serial number. So I'll start first with serial number, then V1, V2, V3, V4, V5, V6. It goes on like that. V7, V8, V9, V10. So you have to enter them at least 50. So all the 50 variables have to be entered. I'm just going to show you until 10 items only, 10 questions only. So this is the way your master sheet is prepared first of all. And then get back to your code book again. Now, whatever the response pattern for each question is mentioned in the column titled response pattern, and their corresponding codes also given in the fifth column, that's called codes. So you are supposed to enter these numbers or these codes for the answers given by the respondents. Instead of entering these, you have to enter these. Remember that. So I'm sure most of the students would have an Excel sheet, because the Google form will give you these responses. Google form will give you these responses, but you need these responses. That's why you have to prepare a code book, and that's why you have to redo your master sheet. So in Google, for example, your Google form, let's say for example occupation, first respondent would have answered employed, second respondent would have answered self-employed. This is how a Google form data would look like after downloading, but we don't need this serial number, first respondent, second respondent. No, your data would look like this. You don't need this data. So what you need is, you need to convert them into codes, and exactly your code book comes to your rescue. That's the purpose of a code book. So without code book, your Excel sheet or your master sheet is useless, I would say, because master sheet is a raw data. It contains the raw data collected from the field, which does not have any directions. So code book actually comes to your rescue. Codebook serves as a direction to treat your master sheet or to understand your master sheet. Now in your master sheet, all the answers to the questions, all these questions, these answers are codified and entered in the Excel sheet. So once you download your Excel sheet from Google Forms, you have to recode or uh, convert your qualitative answers, which are in the form of response pattern like mentioned in the code book, and give the corresponding codes. That's it. So if you are through with it, I'm sure your master sheet is ready. I have already done it after downloading from the Google Forms. So I would just show you. With that, we would conclude our class for today. So I'll open up my folder here. See, this is the form which I had downloaded from the Google. You know that it looks like this. So timestamp, names. In my case, respondents have not given answers, but they have given the uh, gender. See, in case of gender, they mentioned one is male, two is female. So but what I've done, I've converted those qualitative ones into codes according to the code book. Now my entire sheet has data like this. You can see strongly agree, strongly disagree. All those response patterns are converted into codes. So how many respondents have answered to my Google form? 211. I think this gentleman has not completely given the data, so I'm going to delete it. So it's 210. So I think 210 is a very big sample because, as I told you, if your sample size is more than 60, it is a good sample. So 60 is a minimum, maximum you could have any numbers. So you could have 100, 200, 300. So, but in my case, I've got 210 respondents. So I think that's a fair response. So I think that's how I would conclude today's class. And then in the next class, most probably after lunch, I would do that. I'm going to start with the software. Today itself, I'm going to start with the software. So get ready with the software. I have already sent you the links to download that software. So download links are already mentioned in the previous mail. So please check through, download the software. I'm going to show you how to install the software and how to maneuver through the menus of the software. That's going to be my next class. Until then, I wish you all the best. Prepare your code books, check through your master sheets. In case data collection is not done, ensure that you are finished off with the data collection. Even if you are through with it by tomorrow, when I'm demonstrating the software, in real time, you can also open up your own sheets in that software and learn the process. So until then, I wish you all the best.
But I wonder whether you can really demonstrate along with me, because uh, you don't have the data actually. You didn't do the questionnaire design, you didn't upload, you didn't download, you didn't send it to the link. So since this is much advanced stage, you are still lagging behind by 3 weeks. So never mind, we will do it since we are expected to do it. But I am still, I'm at least I thought one or two students would have been along with me on this front, but that's what is not happening. Yeah, but that is a little discouraging, but still, I'm not discouraged because I have to do the duty. You have to learn it, that's it, because you have paid for it. So I hope you have enjoyed today's session. So tomorrow, because I'm not going to demonstrate anything now, it's all our time is exhausted. So tomorrow I'm going to show you a detailed note on the softwares. First, what we'll do, I'll give a personal, I mean, my own description about the softwares. Of course, in the video, I'll also show more elaborately, but I'll have a very brief explanation about the software, and then I will replay some videos which are already recorded for other students. So I hope you would reckon with all of these messages. You would register them, all of them. You can download them, because I'm going to pull the channel after next week, because this is not supposed to be on public. So I will be pulling off all these channels. Only for your students I am running these channels. I'll disable all these channels because my default channel is some other for different purposes. So people would be confused with so many videos. So I want to avoid that confusion. From next week onwards, we will pull off. So in the meantime, if you want to download these videos, you can download them. They are still in the public format for context. So once I pull them off, you cannot identify, you will never find any videos online. So that's a word of caution. So that's it for now. So we'll meet tomorrow again. So have a nice day.